you are. It's how far you are from the opening. Okay. Well, welcome all to this wonderful event that has been planned for quite a while. And I'll say, we all woke up to some horrific news, which is becoming all too common. And I was particularly grateful that the community was doing something today. What we're doing isn't directly helping the victims in Monterey Park, but what we're doing is preparing our community to respond to disaster, in this case through fire and home evacuation. So I thank you for coming out today. All of this helps the immunity response of our community. And it is my joy to welcome you here to our beautiful sanctuary at Mount Cross Lutheran Church, especially if you're visiting. We're so glad you're here. And to thank all of you for taking a Sunday afternoon out to learn this important information. It's always a joy for me to introduce Terry Helton. So Terry Helton, a health minister. Terry Helton, one of the founders of Ventura County Interfaith Communities. Terry Helton, a member of St. Columba's Episcopal Church. Welcome, and please introduce to us who we have to meet today.
Thank you, Julie. Julie, is one of my best people in my life in many ways. So I appreciate her. Thank you for being here today. I am a health minister, and I'm up here to say that health ministries, you have one in your church, you have a care team that looks to that. You have been a leader in this county for that, and I really appreciate that. If you are not here from Mount Cross, if you're from another congregation, I will put that information out there that we're very interested in this county in building a health ministry network. And people do not have to be a nurse to be a part of it. People who are interested in others and want to care for them and learn how to have your congregation support its congregation and your pastors, then you should be interested in building a health ministry or a care team. I will say that. So saying that, caregivers, volunteers assisting the elderly, is interested in that too, and they would like to do that in the way of bringing volunteers from congregations, and they're going to be here to explain that, and I will introduce them as part of this meeting today. They are Jennifer, I can never remember your last name. Jennifer, stand up for me, Hollowell. And Jennifer has been working for caregivers. I am a volunteer for caregivers. She is actually an employee. She does engagement with people who are interested in having a caregiver. She does case management, and she brings with her a great background because she has a bachelor's in that area. She has worked, have you heard of Tri-Counties? She is a case manager for Tri-County, so she has that experience in her background as she's brought this to caregivers. And she is facing the problem of needing volunteers to meet those needs of people in our county who need a volunteer. The other person who's here is Sharon. Sharon, stand up. Sharon originally came, is this Texas? And we'll let you be here, okay?
Well, I'm from California.
Oh, you're a native of California? Oh, see, you got smart. I can only say that because I lived in Texas at one time too. But I had no choice. I was in 7th grade. I learned Texas history in 7th grade. So she brings with her she's an accomplished business entrepreneur, event manager, marketing professional, and community advocate. Wow, we need you. Originally from Glendale, California, Sharon earned her degree from the University of Texas, Dallas. After graduating, she developed and managed several very successful new businesses over 20 years, all based in Dallas, but with service all over the U.S. Always a people person with a passion for volunteers, community partnerships, and being a good neighbor, she is excited to be able to give her expertise to help recruit and retain volunteers so that more seniors are helped annually. With a passion for running, walking, mountain biking, and hanging with her husband and fur kids. She is eager to connect with new friends and colleagues in Ventura County. So what she does is she works with volunteers to help engage them, to find new volunteers and to enroll them. So I don't have bios for the people from Red Cross, but if you'll stand up, Letty, and I didn't get your email, but that's okay. Maybe it's my fault because I didn't check my caregiver's email in that length of time. I don't know if any of you have 1 email, 2 emails, 5 emails. Julie may understand this. So I have an excuse. I have my personal email, the Coalition for Compassionate Care email, caregiver's email, and Livingston email. And then some of that goes to plain Gmail as a backup. So I spend way too much time looking at email. So Red Cross is here today, and they are the people that we look to. We just had a disaster someplace, right? So that disaster is, and it was local, and they were involved in that disaster backup in Ventura County and Santa Barbara. And when we look at disasters, we look to the Red Cross to come in and help us. But part of what they want to do is teach us how to prepare ahead of time to mitigate, meaning be prepared, looking at how you can prepare your home so you don't have to fight back so hard in an emergency. And that's really, really important. Now, I will say, I have a person in my life who, my husband's niece, who volunteers as a Red Cross volunteer. She has been to New York City. She has been to other countries. So volunteering for them is a major event in those cases. When you were involved with this in Ventura County and Santa Barbara, it wasn't just you two, right? You need volunteers. Whole group. Our churches need volunteers. Our community needs volunteers. So part of what we're doing today is learning about our own homes and getting ready to go and evacuate, but also looking how we can build our volunteers throughout this county in many, many aspects. So I'm proud to have you here, and I will shut up now and let Red Cross speak.
Thank you for that. Hi, everyone. My name is Jordan. I work out of the Camarillo American Red Cross office. I specialize in disaster cycle services in the Central California region, which encompasses Ventura County, San Luis Obispo, and Santa Barbara counties. And I'm here to speak about disaster preparedness. So thank you, everyone, for being here. So odds are that a disaster will strike. They can happen anywhere at any time, so it's important to prepare before they happen. You know a situation is a disaster when the normal emergency services that we rely on are completely overwhelmed. You also know it's a disaster when people in your community are scrambled, they're not thinking logically. It's because it's chaotic. There's a lot of things going on. You also know it's a disaster when you see physical damage to property, and you also see physical bodily injuries to people. So now I'd like to talk about which specific disasters that our community faces. We have home fires, which apply across the board, across the country. In particular, in Oxnard, we have a lot of house fires. We're gonna talk more about our house fire campaign later on in this presentation, but one of the main things that the Red Cross focuses on, matter of fact, it's the #1 call that we respond to, are local house fires. We have over 60,000 in the United States every single year, and we have a specialized team called the DAT team, which stands for Disaster Action Team. We go out and we assist the fire department, and we provide the emotional support to people that have been impacted by house fires. We give them blankets, we give them food, we give them water. We basically just make sure all of their needs are taken care of. And then we also have, of course, wildfires. In the fall and in the summer months when the Santa Anas come through, they can be particularly devastating, especially in our mountainous and rugged terrain communities. And then, of course, we have earthquakes. Ventura County sits along many active fault lines. You can't rely on other people to prepare. You have to prepare yourself. Don't expect during a disaster for people to come help you right away, because like I previously mentioned, the systems are overwhelmed. There's a lot going on. It's an active situation. So what you can do is you can prepare yourself. You can prepare your household, and then you can prepare your community. Make sure that the people that are especially vulnerable, meaning elderly people and people that have disabilities, are taken care of and have a plan in place when a disaster happens. You want to make sure that this is set up before it happens, because after the disaster happens, it's not going to be a good situation for anyone. So, do you think that you're Red Cross ready? Let's do a quick test. You know you're Red Cross ready if you know which emergencies or disasters are specific to your community. You have a plan in place. You've practiced it over and over again with your family. You have a survival kit. So I can just use this physical prop as my backpack, but you would fill this with water, a change of clothes, anything that you need to immediately get out of your house. Have your documents ready. Make sure that at least one person in your household is CPR, first aid, AED trained. That's very important. And then you also want to take an active role and make sure that other members in your community are prepared when disaster happens. With that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Letty. She's going to play a quick video on our house fire campaign.
Hello, my name is Letty Alvarez, and my ancestors are from Texas, so I got it. Okay. I'm trying to get it to work. Oh, there we go. No. Oh. Move it over here.
Yeah, to the play button.
It's not going to let me do touch, huh?
Yeah, move it. There we go. There we go.
It was the morning after Father's Day 2 years ago where I decided to smoke some salmon early in the evening. So I put into my last pan of chips, put my head back, and I fell asleep. And I woke up to the sound of what I thought was rain, but it was actually the fire. The side of the house was on fire, and I woke up and looked over my shoulder. It was just solid orange, like I was watching what I call fire TV. When I saw that, I immediately hollered at the top of my voice,
"Stevie, get out now!" So I headed for our designated meeting place, which was out front, and everyone else was already there.
Getting 4 adults out and 2 dogs was incredible. It was almost miraculous.
I remember standing there, and there were neighbors all around. The street was blocked off, filled with fire trucks.
All of a sudden, someone from the Red Cross showed up.
The compassion and the guidance and the caring made all the difference in the world to our state of mind. I just didn't feel alone.
Just about a year before the fire, the Red Cross was in our neighborhood and said they wanted to install some smoke alarms for us.
My first question was, how much does it cost? Money was pretty tight at the time, and he said, well, they're from the Red Cross and they say it's free. So we were happy to let them in, and they just set right to work.
And installed the smoke alarms for us and talked about the fire prevention and also the fire escape plan, which is the major issue that saved our lives and got us out of the house in time.
Had it not been for the Red Cross coming that day and sitting down with us and taking the time to go through the fire escape plan, I wouldn't have known how fast it happens. I would have had no idea. We had no time for hesitation. And because of the Red Cross and the information they gave, there wasn't any hesitation. We jumped up and headed out.
The Red Cross was there for us before the fire, by sharing the smoke alarms, the fire prevention, and the fire escape plan. They were there during the fire to make sure that we had a place to stay and knew that we had a place to start over again. And they were there following up after, asking us about our medications and checking on our pets and things like that.
I just want to tell the Red Cross thank you. When we needed you the most, you were there for us.
Kind of takes your breath away, huh? Because if you know how when we were kids, we always had those fire drills, and the alarm would go off, and we knew where to go because our mind was already prepared year after year at school. So if you do this in your home, it will become automatic, okay? But if you've never practiced it, you've never thought about it, your mind doesn't know what to do, okay? And so that's why it is so important for us to prepare for these disasters, okay? And so during this flooding, I live next to the Santa Clara River, and everybody was calling me up. And I said, I have a go bag, okay? My go bag, as Jordan mentioned, it's like this, but it's more of a duffel bag, like a gym bag. And I have 2 pairs of clothes, and I have medications, I have treats, okay? Anything that will keep me comfortable for 3 days where I can't be in my home. Okay, so I have things in there that are not just essentials, but a few comfort things, okay, and I call it the go bag. I retired from Ventura County Public Health, and so being part of a public health entity, we are always thinking about a disaster, okay? Many members of my family think I'm morbid, okay? But I'm not, because my mind needs to go there, because the Thomas fires, my sister calls me up, what are you going to do? I said, well, you take my cat and dog. Yes, okay, because I was not going to leave my cat and dog behind. And so I have all these people prepared. So a campaign aimed at reducing death, injuries by home fires through prevention and smoke alarm installations. Okay, I'm super excited that you as volunteers are going to support this effort, okay, in your community. As Jordan mentioned, in Oxnard, we have quite a bit of fires. Why? Because people turn their smoke alarms off. But if they know that what could happen, okay, we don't do it. And the reason I think in Oxnard people turn their smoke alarms off, because when you're warming a tortilla or making fried rice, the alarms go off. It is so annoying. So my daughter now cooks those 2 things with her doors wide open and her windows open so that she doesn't disarm her fire alarm. Okay, so typical home visits include review home safety checklist, create a home fire escape plan, because again, your mind will not go where it's never been. So if you say, okay, well, the fire's at the front door, I need to go out the back door. I've since installed 2 gates, okay, 2 gates. So if I go out the back door, I can go out this gate if the fire's a certain place, and I can go out this way if the fire's a certain place, okay? So prepare your mind, right? And learn about our local. So we have earthquake, we have fire, we have fires, we have home fires, but we probably need to add water, right? Flooding, because some people in Ventura County don't have flooding, but some people do, okay? Or the potential to have it. And so, and you can know if you look at your home plan, and you can see if you're in a flood zone, okay? Or if you've been getting all these alarms lately. And so, let's see, checking out current smoke alarms and installing new ones as needed. I think New Year's resolutions are a perfect time to check your smoke alarms, okay? Because I notice as the older I get, expiration dates come real quick, okay? I used to think, why does my grandmother have expired food in her refrigerator? And now my kids are looking at my refrigerator and looking at all my expired food. And so it's like, oh my gosh, I just bought that, I thought. And so that's why if we just mark New Year's, the first month of New Year's to just change something, okay? I try to mark the beginning of spring to clean my refrigerator out now and just look at all the dates. Not like, oh, I just bought that, I'm keeping it. Look at all the dates. So if we look at our dates for even our fire extinguisher, for those who have fire extinguishers, right? They have dates too. So let's not just think we just bought that, but every new year, let's check expiration dates. Okay? And let's see. And we're all coming back here on February 19th so that you can then be deployed to help do the home visits, right? Wherever your caregiver's at, you'll be going out and helping them create a plan, okay? Right? All right, and with that, I'm gonna hand this over to Sharon and Terry. Jennifer, I'm sorry. Here you go.
I'd like to be Terry, though. I wouldn't mind being Terry for a while. She's very impressive.
I didn't know if you wanted to save the questions for the end.
I can just ask it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm open to questions. I can pass the microphone around.
So I have a, can you hear me? Is it on?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So one of my questions is, you mentioned checking once a year for the smoke alarm. What about batteries that don't last as long? And we know that sometimes the rechargeable batteries aren't lasting as long. So is there more suggestion here?
We suggest checking the expiration dates on the smoke alarm and changing out the batteries.
Okay.
Be extra cautious.
So does the Red Cross website list the suggested items for a go bag?
Yes, they absolutely do.
So do you have a handout on that for the?
I have a home fire safety checklist out in the booth outside, but if I don't have that information on my table, I can provide it to you.
Thank you.
Do the smoke detectors have to be placed on the ceiling in the rooms, or is there a more accessible on a wall somewhere?
They can be placed on the walls as well.
Oh, that's good news. Thank you.
Yeah.
What I have is all of my passport, my social security cards, birth certificates, all in my desk in a very, envelope, and so that I can grab that real quick and throw it into my go bag as needed, okay? And the go bag can be kept in a closet, either in your room or in your living room, and let's see, like one gentleman that I worked with, he had cans of pineapple because that's his comfort food, and so he had 3 cans of sliced pineapple in there. And you can get dehydrated food. You can put, I keep thinking of this all the time. People put money in their go bag because they said, well, just in case you can't use your debit cards or you can't get to an ATM machine. But a lot of places just close down if they can't do things mechanical to sell things, and then that's where your resource centers come in handy because they have all the water and the food that you need. I know on the Avenue when we had the fire a couple of years ago, the restaurants were giving out food free because they didn't have the capability of selling. Okay, so they do suggest keeping some money in your go bag if you need it. But yes. Yes.
Because if you get people out on the street selling things, they're not going to have change.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. And I keep a pillow and a blanket in my car even when I travel, so that if I, like when they had the Thomas fire, I thought, okay, if worst comes to worst and my sister won't take my cat and dog, I'll sleep in my car, and I have a pillow and a blanket, okay? And in your jump drive. Your jump drive with pictures or something like that, you can keep a copy in your go bag. I take copies of all my information, and I have it on PDF files, and I have it on a jump drive. They can go in the go bag.
The reason,
Flash drive, yes.
the reason we are asking that everyone with a question or an answer use a microphone is that we're recording this
Yes.
session and we'll be posting it. So next question,
Yeah.
Having pets, what would you suggest in the go bag?
So
pets?
I have, for my pet, I have their own bag, right? Because especially my cat, I can't just throw my cat in the car because if there's too much going on, he's going to be scared. So I have a carrier for my cat, and I have a Chihuahua pug, so she has a carrier too. And again, you'd want 3 days of food for him, but there's so many pantries out there that will support your animals with food, but you'd want to have whatever's going to keep them comfortable and happy for 3 days being out of their home. So if you, let's say you go stay in a hotel, whatever is going to keep them happy and content for 3 days in that hotel.
So you're making me think something. You're talking 3 days, and as a nurse and somebody who worked looking for people in a hospice agency that had to be evacuated during the Thomas fire, what we discovered is you should plan for 7 days of medication. So considering that, because that took a lot longer for people to get rehoused than we realized. So that brings me back to evacuated, and you talked about resource centers. So, and it sounds simple, doesn't it? How do you find a resource center when you're being evacuated and your brain is scrambled for everything that's going on?
Well, that's why you need to sign up for the alerts on your phone, okay? Because during the Thomas fire, I knew that people could go to the fairgrounds, right? You can go to the fairgrounds. That was an evacuation site. And then once things kind of settled, then everybody went to the Ponceta Pavilion, okay? And then all the agencies were there helping to get prescriptions, helping to replace your passport if it caught fire, whatever you needed. When I did the fire in Thousand Oaks, I don't remember what the name of that one.
Woolsey fire.
The Woolsey fire, yes. How could I forget? I worked out there, and I was deployed at the resource center out there. Was it the library?
I don't know
Yeah.
where it was, but
Yeah.
so what I do know is, now I'm going to ask
Those alerts.
everybody, raise your hands in here. Do all of you have smartphones? So if somebody had an old-time flip phone, would they be able to do that?
As long as they can get texts.
Okay.
It's a text alert, okay? And my daughter lives in Los Angeles, and so she signed up for the Nextdoor app for Ventura so she could make sure that I was okay, okay? And then I couldn't order the air purifier. I couldn't find any here, so then she got it for me and was able to get it for me. So having somebody outside the disaster area as a contact so that your family, so everybody knew they could call my daughter in Los Angeles, okay? So that's part of your go bag is having maybe an address book. Because let's say your phone runs out, you can't charge it, and you don't know everybody's phone number by heart because everybody forgot about that. I can tell you my grandmother's phone number for 40 years ago, but I couldn't tell you anybody else's number, right? Because we don't remember numbers anymore. So have a small address book with all those important phone numbers. Yes.
Well, when you were talking about cell phones and things running out, the battery running out, they do have solar battery chargers that people can use?
Yes.
Right, a good idea to have one of those.
Yes, I have since, when the Thomas fire, I had a bunch of camping lanterns that I was able to go into my garage, take them all out because we didn't have any electricity. And now when I go to Costco, I see that they have those camping lanterns now where you can plug in your phone. So having lived through all these disasters, has improved my go bag, has improved what I keep in my home, what I need in my home. You have your electric can opener, but you still have your regular can opener. Or do you buy pull top cans now? When your mind goes there, you shop differently. You buy differently, and you have things in your car that maybe you would never have since your kids were little, right? When your kids were little, you always had a pillow and a blanket just in case they got tired. But now we still carry them because just in case we're out and something happens, we can have my comfort blanket and my special pillow.
I recommend everyone carrying a portable charger in their go bags of at least 30,000 milliamps. That'll give you at least 3 charges of your device.
That was one thing I was going to recommend because I have one. But you mentioned your passport and birth certificate. Are copies sufficient? Or are most agencies, if you have to have insurance or whatever, need the originals?
If you've gone through a fire, you're in a disaster mode, they will take copies to renew. Okay, you just have to tell them that your your house burnt down or, for earthquake damage. Then they allow you the copies. Okay, but it's like when I travel, when I've gone to Europe, I keep a copy of my passport in my purse. I keep a copy of passport in my suitcase, and then the original, because if you lose your passport while out of the country, at least you have a copy that you can go to your consulate and get new.
Yeah, exactly. You should take copies when you travel internationally.
Yep.
So now we've got this evacuation point, and we have people who have evacuated from their home, but they have lost contact. People who have medical conditions, are there anything we're doing to help with those, say maybe their home health or they're a dialysis patient? Is there ways that you help with that?
I don't know about the Red Cross, but I know the resource centers are well prepared to help people to navigate all the resources they need. I know at the resource center, I sat next to Red Cross people too.
One thing that you can always do is you can always call 1-800-RED CROSS, and if we're not able to directly help you, we can direct you towards the resources so that you can get that help.
Okay, so what if, for instance, I was looking for hospice patients, that Livingston was mandated, any hospice is mandated to care for them, even in this situation. And so we were looking for those patients that were being evacuated because they didn't call us and tell us. Now, we teach them to call and tell us where they are, right? But maybe they didn't have their phone charged. Maybe it's so emergency-based. So there was hope that now when they're checking in at those resource centers or that evacuation point, that that's a question that's being asked so that there can be contact given.
Yeah, I don't know per se how exactly the Red Cross would assist with that, other than just finding some way to get in contact with them so that they could direct you towards those resources. I'm sorry, I can't really elaborate.
I'm changing the nature of my question back to my friend who asked about best locations for the smoke alarms. Another question about is how many? We own a house that happened to have smoke alarms that were hardwired when the house was built. But I hear other people, for instance, talk about having a smoke alarm in every bedroom. Our hardwired smoke alarm house doesn't have that. Are some of the materials you're going to make available to us afterwards give indications of how many and where a home should have smoke alarms?
Do you know how to answer that question?
My house is hardwired too, but I have a sprinkler system. And so
So
my
do we.
sprinklers will
So
go
do we.
off.
Okay.
Yeah, If
But I
there's
mean-
a fire anywhere in the home or smoke, the alarms go off. And my neighbor across the street, she had a small popcorn fire on her microwave, and the sprinkler system went off. Okay, she had more water damage than she did fire damage.
Right. So is there a square space, a square feet requirement for the smoke alarm? Do you know, Gletha?
We just recently sold a home, and it was about 50 years old. We had put smoke alarms in at the time, according to the regulations. Last year, when we got ready to sell, we had to double the number of smoke detectors before we could put it on the market.
So do you, did they tell you the square footage per smoke alarm?
It's not the square footage, it's the location, one in each bedroom, in the hallways. Bedrooms, hallways, you know, that kind of thing, not square footage.
Back to resources. What does 211, if you dial 211, what do you get? I've never actually dialed it.
Yeah, I've never done it.
Oh, yeah. You know, when cell phones became popular, it was very difficult to dial 211 because the cell phones weren't equipped for it. Now they are. 211 is a great resource, and it was a lifesaver for all of us, for the Thomas Fire, the Woolsey Fire, the flood alerts, or even people whose individual home catch fire because of whatever reason, right? You call 211 and you tell the lady, the gentleman, the person, whoever answers, saying, this is my issue, this is what I need, and they have everything in the computer, every resource that's available to you in Ventura County. They know about it. And I've had the pleasure of meeting the people, the managers who direct that, because they were also at all the resource centers, educating us of the resources they offer and telling people, okay, this is what we have to offer, but if for some reason when you get home you think of something else, you call 211. If you need a lawyer, you call 211. They'll have a referral service. You know, we have so many 1-800 numbers to call for different things, but 211 is like the hub of all the 1-800 agencies that you need in Ventura County, any resource, all the nonprofits.
So 211 is also textable, and they are on the internet. And you're bringing me back to an idea that I actually do know this too. So if we have an emergency thing, like remember we had the Woolsey fire and we lost our phones, we lost the internet, remember that? What did we discover we could do and that they allowed and they told us? We text. So the best thing to do in an emergency is to text, not call. And any emergency, as I can't remember your name, Letty, and I couldn't read it. Letty is to have that outside source of this county, especially earthquakes. We know, we've been taught, and any evacuation thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And just another plug for 211, during COVID, I'm on the board of directors for caregivers, and we were overrun with calls being forwarded from 211 to us because people were calling in saying, I can't get out to get my groceries. How am I going to get food? Because of the lockdowns, quarantines. And so we were literally one of those major resources they came to. And we were changing our rules and finding volunteers out on the street and grabbing them to help us and getting them cleared so that we could get groceries delivered. But 211 was the resource that came to us.
Yeah, I can sing 211's praises. They actually originated through Interface here in this county.
Yes.
They were the originators of 211 in Ventura County, and it has actually gone nationwide. And it's based out of Ventura County. It makes you proud, doesn't it?
Yeah, and they're collecting a lot of data for us about what type of calls they get, so that if we're not fulfilling that need for the caller, they work at fulfilling it.
It's amazing.
It is really amazing. But locally, if you want 311, you contact, that's your local city. So if you call 311, you're going to get a city agency, okay, in your name. So if I'm in Ventura and I call 311, I get city. And so if I say there's graffiti here, there's trash, because some things, your local city can support that. And so if there's something that you think is a fire hazard, is a hazard towards earthquake, is a hazard for your senior, then you can call 311 and let the city know that there's issues and can they fix it for you. Okay, so 311 is when you report city issues.
I learned something new. Thank you, Letty.
Is that just based on caller ID?
I think it is. And then there's 811 for suicide prevention, 911 for an extreme emergency.
It's 988 for suicide.
Oh, 988. Okay. Thank you for that correction.
Very, very neat, that important number.
Yeah.
So are there more questions regarding emergency planning? Suicide. The suicide prevention number. That's nationwide now, like 911 for emergency bases. So did any more questions on emergency planning? Thank you for being willing to do that. That was really important. I appreciate it. So, a blanket. I did want to say, if you don't feel like you can carry a pillow and a regular blanket in your car, and you should have an extra pair of shoes that you can walk 7 miles in. Seriously, because I would not be walking 7 miles in these shoes. So if an emergency happened, I would want to be able to get tennis shoes out of my car and put those on. So you should have those in your car for walking purposes. And for the blanket, you can get the solar blanket that looks like it's nothing, but it will protect you. So, are we ready for caregivers? And I apologize, I meant to introduce Gletha as from the board, so.
Thank you very much. I'm a runner, so I know about Mylar blankets. We use them at the end of races all the time, and they work really great as well. It's always good to have that pair of tennis shoes. My husband always has a pair by the bed, and particularly in Texas, we had tornadoes, and oftentimes he was like, make sure you put those tennis shoes, because if something happens, we are getting those tennis shoes on, because glass breaks, and you want to have that protection. So very good tips. Thank you. So caregivers. So we're here to talk a little bit about our organization, and thank you all for having us. So we're a nonprofit, 501c3. We assist the elderly in Ventura County with non-medical and non-professional support. So we're all volunteer-based. We're volunteer caregivers. So everyone who goes into our seniors' homes, they are volunteers, which is a very important distinguishing attribute that we have. We have amazing volunteers. We were launched in 1984 with a $150,000 grant, which is hardly anything amazing, from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. One of the original pilot programs for volunteer caregiving in the nation was started here with caregivers, so similarly good to know and be proud of. So our services, and this is a very short presentation. I'm just going over the very basics so that we're quick and efficient today, but we provide those essential services at no cost. And we can do that through our volunteers who give their time. And we really only ask for about 2 to 4 hours a week of volunteer caregiving. So it's not a lot of time, but if you have more time than that, we welcome that opportunity. We have about 320 volunteers involved in the program. We have an office team of 7. We're all part-time, we're not full-time, and we serve about 1,000 seniors during COVID and currently about 500 seniors. But we do have a little bit of a deficit with our volunteers right now. We had a lot of people return back to work full-time or maybe find other opportunities. So we're looking for about 100 volunteers. Really, it's about 150 because some people come and go or maybe can't give as much time. And we have about 90 seniors that are waiting on our list right now for a volunteer match. So quite a bit of need, and Jennifer will talk a little bit more about that here in a second. We do have some screening and training that goes into our volunteer recruitment efforts. So the first step is to complete an application. We do a live scan, which is also a background check, and it's fingerprinting. And that takes about 10 days to get back. So as soon as that's done with the live scan, you go in and do that, and then hopefully it comes back within that short window. The second step is we have a formal interview where we bring in our volunteer. They sit with us. We talk to them a little bit about what they like to do, learn about them, because what's really important to us is to match that volunteer in an appropriate situation based on what they want to do. Because we want the senior to be comfortable, we want our volunteer to be comfortable, and we want that to work for both of them. We do a Q&A session, make sure they understand who we are and what we do. And then we match. And some people get matched one-on-one and they develop deep and long relationships with who they're matched with. And others sort of come and go a little bit. Maybe they don't want to be matched with somebody, but they would like to do shopping, or they'd like to do something on the phone, or they'd like to do transportation. And so those volunteers kind of pick and choose the areas that they want to help with. So we do have a lot of various opportunities for that. And so I think Jennifer is up next. As soon as I go through just our recognition and events, we do a thank you for our volunteers. We do check-ins with them, make sure everything's going well. I'm getting to start my very first event next month on February 24th. We're doing a bevies and bingo, but next month is going to be a classic rock bingo and Bill's birthday party, which he's the owner of the Shores in Oxnard. So if you guys get on our list, you're all invited to come out and play bingo. And then we have various other events throughout the year that we always invite our volunteers and our seniors to. And we have amazing volunteers here today that came, so thank you all for being here. And so Jennifer will talk about our programs and a little bit more about everyone she gets to talk to.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm the Senior Engagement Coordinator at Caregivers, which means I am very fortunate to be the person that goes out and meets every senior that we serve. And what I do is I sit down with them and I spend about an hour and figure out what it is they need and what it is we might be able to help with volunteers. And there's almost always something we can do to help a senior in need. So our goal is to support a senior in their home and help them remain independent and feel needed. Sometimes it's just companionship. Sometimes it's transportation. Could be grocery shopping, could be help around the house, something a good neighbor would do. So we have different kinds of volunteers that volunteer with us, like Sharon has already talked about. Some are one-on-one matches, and that's the 2 to 4 hours a week, once a week. We have people that do just transportation to doctor's appointments. They're able to pick up and drop you off at your doctor's appointment, go with you. Sometimes you need that extra, ear to take in what the doctor's telling you, and we have volunteers that do those kind of things. We have students that are volunteering with us from the high schools, and they help with some light housekeeping and light yard work. We also have teams of special need adults that are helping us with those kind of things right now too. So a hospital to home program. We have some nurses that volunteer with us that are able to help seniors who are just out of the hospital, so that we could step in and maybe provide a little extra help so they're not readmitted to the hospital. Maybe meal prep, maybe just help around the house. Maybe just checking in, a phone call. How you doing? Do you need some help? Maybe making those phone calls to doctors, little things that can help them stay home and not be readmitted to the hospital. What am I missing? What did I forget to mention? We have a Phone Friends program, which every senior who's enrolled with us, we check in on them at least once a month. We say, hey, how you doing? How's everything? Do you need anything? Can we be helpful? We have some folks that are phone friends that we match, and they spend a little bit more time. A relationship on the phone. So we are definitely in need of volunteers. If anybody knows anyone that can help us out, there's many different ways you can volunteer at Caregivers, even if it would be an event or in the office with mailings. Honeydew Crew, yes, we have some folks who are handy. Things like fixing a fan or a small plumbing issue. And it just depends on our volunteers at the time. Sometimes we have folks who are skilled in, various ways. We have a lot of folks who come from the Point Magoo Naval Base who are very handy. CBs come to us. We've fixed roofs before, which is a big project, but we had someone who could do that. We were able to patch a leaky roof in a mobile home with that volunteer. So we have a dementia-friendly relief program, folks who are caregiving for people who have dementia or Alzheimer's. We try to provide a little respite with a volunteer for that caregiver so they could maybe get out of the house, go get their hair done, just take a breath and go for a walk around the block and know that they have somebody there supporting their senior, and they could do that comfortably.
So
Shop and drop, too. Sorry.
Yeah, the shop and drop started with the 211. So Jennifer, I'm going to ask you, what was it like to be a volunteer?
I was a volunteer for Caregivers. Thank you, Terry. For many years, about 18 years, I volunteered for Caregivers. When my first daughter was born, I had time. My family lived in Pennsylvania. I lived here in California, and I didn't have my mom. I didn't have my grandma that I would normally be giving time to. So I decided to volunteer for Caregivers, and I did. And I was matched with 3 different seniors throughout my volunteering. My last senior I was with for 8 years, I think. And she was just my best friend. And it was fantastic.
So, yeah, so volunteering has different pictures for everybody. Mm-hmm. And Sharon said 3 to 4 hours. Sometimes it may be an hour, maybe 2 hours. So, and the idea of volunteering on February 19th would be for that day, maybe looking at volunteering for the first time if you're able to do that. Maybe it's something you want to continue or to share with other people. So, something to consider.
We have a question. What
is your phone number?
Right outside, we have quite a few flyers for you. Just pick up one of these, and when you're walking out the door there, we have some cards, and hopefully it's there on the screen. So grab a card on your way out.
This may seem like a strange question, but if you knew my background, you'd understand where it came from. Is there ever any background check done on the seniors that are going to receive care?
That's a good question. We've had seniors ask that question, and no, the check is my assessment really when I go out and I meet the senior. So I'm actually viewing, where a volunteer would be going, like what their home environment is, and the person in general who would be served, whether they're someone a volunteer would be able to help out. So that's really that's it. It's the assessment, which I spend quite a bit of time on the phone. They actually make a couple phone calls. They come through our office and they speak to a couple different staff members. So we kind of screen them that way. And then it's me spending time on the phone with them and then meeting them in person.
So Jennifer, if there's the need of volunteers for those 90 people, but sometimes it feels really slow with you assessing people. Mm-hmm. If there were people with the right background, could they be trained to be volunteers to help with that?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Assessments to help
with assessments?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, definitely.
So
We've had interns that have come into the office.
Mm-hmm.
We've had college students who would help with like the reassessments. So they would go back at, if we have a senior who's been enrolled with us for quite a while and we haven't seen them in a while, to be able to serve them well, we have to know them well. So we'd send probably the student out, and I do reassessments all the time too, but to go back out and meet the senior and see what has changed, what are your needs now? Is it still appropriate for a volunteer to go to? So.
And part of that volunteering is that there is a little educational program that goes with it, and that they have developed also that education for the person who's receiving the volunteer work so that they understand that a caregiver who's going out there is not going to be doing their bath. They're not going to be lifting them off and on the toilet. They're not that kind of caregivers. They're caregivers who spend time, or if it's youth or somebody going and maybe doing some light housekeeping, but it is not physical hands-on caregiving that you would pay for through an agency. So that needs to be clear.
Anybody have any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I'd like to add a little more information.
Sure.
Just a little background. The founder of Caregivers is still living. She's here in Camarillo, and her name is Sister Patricia Callahan. And she started it with the grant from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation as an interfaith community establishment organization, and 40 years ago. And it was about 3 years ago that our director, our executive director, asked me if I'd like to be paired one-on-one with our founder, and I said, what a blessing. And then our founder fell and broke her arm. So when she was released from the hospital, guess who was at her front door when she got home? Me. And we developed a relationship, and she looked at me and she said, I never thought I would need this myself. And we've had a lot of laugh over that. She's quite independent now at this point, and we've become friends. And sometimes she just calls me and she says, you know, you're elderly now too. I have to check on you. So we have a good laugh out of that. The other thing is, if you volunteer, it will be the best, most rewarding thing you ever do. I volunteered and was matched one-on-one with a lady who was living in her own home, and then her husband passed away, and she had no family, so I helped her with her decision to move to an assisted living facility. I ended up being with her 12 years, and she died at the age of 103. And so the volunteer opportunity is there. You can make of it what you want, an hour a week, 2 hours a week, 4 phone calls. We need you. We need financial donations, but we need volunteers as much, if not more.
And thank you all for being here
Yeah.
and being willing to learn what seniors might need in regards to just the smoke alarms for now, but hopefully this was informational for you to know. You know, seniors are in need, and they need many things.
I have a question. How many people are on your waiting list for Camarillo area alone?
It's probably close to 23 in Camarillo.
Okay.
And the way we match folks is not just by, you know, where you're at on the waiting list, really. It's by proximity. So, you know, the closer you live to someone who is in need is going to probably be the best way to match someone. But we also do it by personality, by needs. Mm-hmm. So it's all very important. But even if you are number 23 on that list, it doesn't mean you're going to wait. You know, it just depends on where the volunteer comes in, really.
Sure. Hang on a second. How do people get on the list to get your assistance?
Hi, I've been volunteering, and I'm curious about how people get on your list to get assistance, what the criteria are, how they learn about caregivers.
Well, people learn of caregivers, I think, by word of mouth, through maybe their churches, social workers. If they're hospitalized, social workers know of us. 211 knows of caregivers, family members. So the process would be the senior contacting us and letting us know that they're looking for some help. Sometimes it's a family member. Sometimes we do it together with the family member and the senior. But the process is just getting in touch with us, and then we go from there. We talk to them, and then we go through that process to get to me, to where I make that assessment of the senior, and if they are in need of a one-on-one and want to be on the waiting list, that's it. And I place them on the waiting list. And we do our best to match them up as soon as possible. As soon as a volunteer comes in, we match them up if we can, or place them in the volunteer opportunity that they want to be in, like transportation or hospital to home.
I am a chatty Kathy, aren't I? Anyway, so is there a financial requirement? I mean, do they have to be financially in need to be able to get these services, or just simply
No.
a senior? And how old do they have to be a senior to qualify?
You have to be 60 and over and live in Ventura County, and that's it. And there's no income basis at all. A lot of our seniors are lower income. Those are usually the people that have more needs, but not all. So a lot of people don't have family close by. A lot of people are living on their own for the first time. A lot of people are not driving anymore, lost their transportation, need a little bit of help. Families scatter nowadays, so a lot of people don't have their family close by anymore. Doug has a question.
Thank you. I serve as a volunteer for caregivers, and I would share with folks that 80% of all the folks served by caregivers are women, and those women are generally 75 and older and on limited income. Social Security, maybe a pension themselves or a husband's pension, and generally they are alone.
And you would never believe how low the amount of income some people can live on Social Security. It's just unbelievable to me. So yes, most of our folks are lower income, but not all.
Yeah. So what I will say is, if you personally don't feel like you can volunteer or you need a volunteer, please put your name in. But also share this information, because there are people out there who want to volunteer, they just don't know how to go about it. And there are young people who could benefit, and believe me, they could benefit from a relationship with an older person, and yet we haven't learned that and taught that. So that might be something we might want to share.
Adopt a Grandparent is one of our programs. It's basically, a family. Instead of just one person volunteering with a senior, it would be maybe a mom and her daughter. And actually, that's kind of how I volunteered, although it wasn't called Adopt a Grandparent at the time. But I always had my daughters with me when I took a senior out, or went to the doctors, and they would be helping with the door or the wheelchair, or they were part of it. So we actually were Adopt a Grandparent.
So I was wondering, when you do your assessment, you decide what the needs are for this particular person. Like, for instance, she just wants you to go buy groceries for her or just sit and chat. So once you volunteer, you know exactly what is expected from the person that you send them to, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If it's a one-on-one match, and it's very individual, everybody has different needs, right? And
right.
Volunteers also are able to give differently too. Whatever, it could be driving, or maybe you don't want to do transportation. It could be housework, or like I didn't want to do any housework. I don't like to do housework at my house. So I would do everything and anything except mopping the floors, right? That's just not what I wanted to do. But then there are other parts of our organization that can fill in those gaps.
So for the most part, my fear would be, not a fear, but I would wonder if once you're there, they might ask you to do more than what you thought you were going to do.
Are you already volunteering with us?
No, I've taken care of plenty of people.
Because, yes, that happens a lot.
Right, so,
yes.
I mean, so we would be in contact with you? Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
We're here, we would be there to support you, for sure. And I've actually just recently dealt with a situation very similar. So, a volunteer, as you all know, you want to help people. You want to do good for someone. It makes you feel good to help someone. So it's hard to say no sometimes, but we have conversations with our volunteers a lot about setting boundaries. You have to have, you just have to have boundaries. And you have to know what your boundaries are. And maybe you'll learn it while you're volunteering, but you do have to have your own personal boundaries. Time that you can give, you have to be able to say, I can only do 1 day a week, or I can do 2 days a week, whatever it might be. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just curious, you mentioned pushing a wheelchair or driving somebody to an appointment. Is there liability coverage?
There is, yes, we have thank you for that question. Yes, Caregivers does have an umbrella policy. We ask that you have your own automobile insurance, of course, right? But yes, we have an insurance that would cover volunteers.
Which is very unusual in circumstances. I think it's an amazing thing they do that. Now, I will say, we talked about the youth again, and when I was younger, one of the things I did is, I was about 15, is I did this not knowing I was a volunteer. I was being a friendly visitor. I had no idea. And when I lived in New Mexico, I visited a lady who was blind. And to me, it was the best thing I ever did. To this day, I sat and talked with her and learned about, she was sighted when she was a child, and about 5 years old, she lost her sight. And she was sent to a school in Arkansas for the blind. And I sit for hours and talk with this lady and hear about her life, and I just was thrilled. She showed me how she cooked. She showed me her Braille machine. I kept the Braille from that for so long that she showed me because it was so special. But I never thought about it being meaningful to her. It was meaningful to me. And by the way, they used to pass notes in their bloomers in the hallways. So kids, kids were kids, teenagers were teenagers. So thinking about the youth group and having those opportunities to be exposed to people who those memories are there can be done in a group, and maybe only a volunteer from the congregation that could lead that group periodically.
We have a huge need for adult team leaders for our students, especially Camarillo. So if you know anybody that likes to work with students, they go out in teams of maybe one student or two or more if we have the need, but definitely a huge need right now.
They can't do what I did and go by myself. They have to go with supervision. So.
Yeah. Anybody have any other questions? Well, thank you so much for being here, and hopefully we can work together with you guys if you want to sign up with Caregivers as a volunteer, or even if you're just going to be doing the Red Cross install and we don't hear from you again as caregivers, please share our information with anybody you know. Anybody in need also. I carry my cards in my purse. I tell you, I have a stack of them, because you always run into somebody at the grocery store, right? That you look at and you say, that person could use a little bit of help, and I'm just dishing out my cards when I'm grocery shopping.
So you're building up your list.
Yes, I know, it's horrible, but but there are people in need, and we're here to help. So I always tell seniors, call us if we can be helpful. We will. We'll try. Okay, thank you.
Wait. How long is the training before you're able to go out and actually do volunteer work? How long is it?
It's not too extensive. We ask you to do a national volunteer training, and it's all online. So I think it probably takes maybe 15 minutes to complete, a half an hour to, yeah. And then there's specialized trainings for, like, if you're going to volunteer as a dementia.
That's longer.
Yeah, a little extra training, because that's a special volunteer. You have to have a little training, a little knowledge in Alzheimer's or dementia if you're going to be caregiving or respiting for them.
So, and I will say Caregivers is involved nationally. They're the leaders in the National Volunteer Caregiving Network. There are people in West Virginia, Indiana, Alaska, Hawaii, who are all involved in caregiving, and they're all mostly volunteer organizations. So there is no tax monies going to this. It is all grant and volunteer.
Yes, if you know folks that need help in other states, the National Volunteer Network, you could just look it up online or call us and get the phone number, and you can find somebody close by, hopefully, that can help out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to say anything, Pastor Julie? Thank you.
And thanks for hosting.